Hello, I am Trevor Moore, and this is homework video assignment number 6. In today's video, we'll be covering principles in chapter 20 from our textbook, specifically using an example of an athlete that was found in chapter 17, being a 17-year-old high school cross-country runner. I'll be considering the 5 types of aerobic endurance training methods, those being long, slow distance running, number 2 being pace tempo, 3 being interval, 4 being high intensity interval training, and then number 5 being the fartlek method. I will then be making target training intensity calculations for each of the 5 methods and presenting on how I would train this athlete for each of the 5 methods. I will specifically set the duration and the intensity of the training program and what those should look like for each of the 5 methods, with expressing those in percentages of VO2 max, percentage of heart rate max, percentage of heart rate reserved, and then be assessing their rate of perceived exertion as well. For the interval, high intensity interval training, and then the fartlek method, I will be clarifying the work to rest ratio, the work duration and rest duration, and then the number of sets. And then for our 17-year-old cross-country runner, his resting heart rate is 48 beats per minute. He has a VO2 max of 75, and his lactate threshold is at 70% of his VO2 max. Okay, the first thing that I'll be doing is I'm going to be calculating his heart rate max, and then after that I'll be calculating his heart rate reserve. And then based on these 2 numbers, depending on the different type of aerobic endurance activity that he is doing, based on the percentage of VO2 max, I'll be able to use these numbers to calculate his ranges for where his maximum heart rate should be and where the heart rate reserve range should be. So in calculating his heart rate max, I took 220 and subtracted it by 17, giving me 203 beats per minute. And then with that 203 to calculate his heart rate reserve, I'm subtracting that from 48, which is his resting heart rate, getting me 155 beats per minute. So now moving on, the first method of aerobic endurance training will be long, slow distance, also known as LSD. So purpose for long, slow distance is to develop an aerobic base, improve endurance, and then with that, it increases mitochondrial density and then fat utilization as well. So the recommended intensity for LSD or long, slow distance is between 60 and 75% of VO2 max. The heart rate max should be between 70 and 80%. The heart rate reserve range should be between 60 and 70. And then the RPE will be between 11 to 13, which is light to moderate. So with the VO2 max being between 60 and 70%, having the heart rate reserve calculation of 155, multiplying that by 0.6, and then adding 48, which is his normal resting heart rate. His range starts at 141 beats per minute for his heart rate reserve, and then that maximum being 70%, 155.7, and then adding 48 to it gets to the range ending at 157 beats per minute. So that heart rate reserve range between 141 and 157. His heart rate max should be between 142 and 162. And then again, that targeted intensity for VO2 is 60 to 75%. With the RPE scale, he should be around 11 to 13, which is using the Borg method, which should be light to moderate intensity for him. So with those numbers, what should he be doing? The duration of the workout should be between 60 and 90 minutes. It should be continuous running, but at a pace where he'd be able to have a conversation with someone if they were running or jogging along with him. And then there are no rest intervals for LSD. It is straight through for those 60 or 90 minutes, maintaining that constant pace, staying within those ranges for the event. The second aerobic endurance training type that he will be going through will be pace and tempo. So the purpose of pace tempo training is to improve the lactate threshold by training near race pace. So since the lactate threshold occurs at around 70% VO2 max, tempo runs should occur slightly above that range. So for the recommended intensity, that VO2 max should be between 75 and 85%. The heart rate max should be between 80 and 90%, which the heart rate reserve should be between 75 and 85%. And then the rate of perceived exertion should be between 14 and 16, which on the Borg scale, that would be hard to very hard. So during the last back end of the training, that range would probably start to switch from hard to becoming very hard. So with those ranges in mind, calculating his heart rate reserve, taking 155, multiplying it by 0.75, and then adding 48, that range should start at 164 beats per minute, and then it should end at 85%. So taking 155 times 0.85, adding 48 to it, that range should end at 180 beats per minute, with his heart rate max being between 162 and 183 beats per minute. So workout example for this one, he should do a warm-up, but after that warm-up, he is doing a tempo run for 20 to 40 minutes that is continuous, and he's pushing near race pace. It should feel uncomfortable, but at a pace that he can try to sustain for those 20 to 40 minutes. And then he should end it following up by a cool down, but similar to LSD, there is no rest intervals for it. It is a straight through workout for that 20 to 40 minutes. The next type of aerobic endurance training that he will be going through will be interval training, the purpose being to try to increase aerobic power while allowing partial recovery. For the intensity here, the VO2 max range should be between 90 and 100%, with the heart rate max between 90 and 95%, the heart rate reserve being 85 to 95%, and then the rate perceived exertion should be between a 16 or 18. So this is hard and almost becoming very hard. So in calculating his heart rate reserve, starting at 85%, taking 155, multiplying it by 0.85, and then adding his resting heart rate to start that range of 180. And then the range should go to 95, so taking 155, multiplying it by 0.95, adding that resting heart rate of 48. The range should end at 195, so his heart rate reserve should be between 180 and 195 beats per minute, with his heart rate max being between 183 and 193 beats per minute. So workout example for this one, the duration should take between 3 to 5 minutes. I'm gonna have him run 5 1,000 meter runs, doing this in sets between 5 and 6 times. For this one, there should be a work to rest ratio, approximately 1-to-1. So I'll be getting his times on these 1,000 meters. Whatever he goes, I'll be giving him an equal amount of rest before he does his 5 or 6 sets. All right, the next aerobic endurance training is high intensity interval training, or HIIT. So the purpose being to improve VO2 max, speed endurance, and then cardiovascular capacity. For the recommended intensity, VO2 max should be pushed 95 to 100%. Heart rate max should also be 95 to 100%. Heart rate reserve should also be 90 to 100%. And then your rate of perceived exertion should be between 18 and 20. So very hard or feeling like you're gonna need to quit. So calculating the heart rate reserve, 155 times 0.9 plus 48, 188 beats per minute. And then 100% would be at 203 beats per minute, which is his maximum heart rate. So I'm gonna have him do 10 400-meter runs. Based on his time on the first 5, I'm gonna give him a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. And then on the back end for the last 5, I'm gonna give him a 1-to-2 work rest ratio. The last method is the fartlek training method. The goal is to improve aerobic endurance while incorporating varied intensities throughout. So VO2 max range will range between 60 and 90%. This will be that biggest range because of how drastically the intensity does shift. Heart rate max 70 to 90%. Same thing with the biggest range on there. Heart rate range as well, 60 to 90%. And then rate of perceived exertion, 12 to 17. Again, it'll be at that higher end with the higher intensities and at the lower end for the lower intensities. So with that, his heart rate max will be between 142 and 183 beats per minute. Again, that wide range will vary. It'll go up and down depending on what part of the segment he is on, whether that be the easier part or the higher intensity part based on where he is at in the workout. And then again, his heart rate reserve will be between 141 and 188, having that same reason for those big shift in numbers. So his workout will last between 45 minutes and an hour. I'm going to be having him do alternating efforts. He's going to do an easy jog for 3 minutes, followed up by a fast run for 2 minutes. And then I'm going to have him sprint for 30 seconds and then have a recovery jog for 2 minutes. He's going to repeat that 6 to 8 cycles until that time gets to 45 to an hour. And with that, that concludes video assignment number 6, going over different types of aerobic endurance training from chapter 20 from our textbook. Thank you.